Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us today for the IAFC webinar. What is the motivational climate in your department? We have a panel of esteemed guests today that I know that you will enjoy hearing from. We will get to them in just a few moments, but in the meantime, before we start, just know that the audio is being broadcast using via voice over IP. So if you have any trouble, the best thing is to usually sign out and then sign back in. That usually solves the problem, but if not, you can contact IFC support at the email given there. Just a couple of housekeeping. Oh, Nuno from Portugal is with us today. Hi, Nuno. Good to see you again. But in the upper right-hand corner of your screen is the chat and Q&A menus. We prefer that you use the chat, then that way everybody can see. And if you want to do as Nuno has provided an example, let us know where you're from. We like to see where everybody's from. You can put your Q&A, any questions that you would like to pose to the panel in the Q&A tab or in the chat. Either one, they will both be monitored. And today we don't have a PowerPoint presentation as it's a panel discussion, so we won't have any specific handouts. The VCOS webinar series today is the last one from this series, but we will be continuing on into July. Look for more information on the IAFC website for those. And don't forget about the symposium in the sun, November 14th through the 17th in Clearwater, Florida. You can register at iafc.org events. And now today we have, like I said, an esteemed panel of esteemed group of panelists who will take you into today's topic. Ladies, please proceed.
Hello, everyone out there. I'm going to start us off. My name is Chief Donna Black. I am the immediate past president right now of the International Association of Fire Chiefs, and I also served on the VCOS board for several years. My day job is I'm in a small combination department on the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and we have a combination of career staffing 24/7, a handful of volunteers, and then we also have part-timers as well. I will tell you, over the last few years serving through the presidential roles and then now into my immediate past president role, getting the opportunity to travel around the country, be at the World Fire Congress. When you look at recruitment, retention, and motivation, and what keeps our folks going in the firehouse every day is everyone's challenge. We're all experiencing the same thing. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation with my colleagues here today, and I'll turn it over to Kate.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. My name is Kate Lovelace. I am the Executive Director for the Maryland State Firefighters Association. It's going to take me a couple of times because we've recently just changed our name from firemen's to firefighters this past convention about a week and a half ago. So it's a big milestone for us. We're excited to move our association forward. I'm also a volunteer. I've been a volunteer since I started in 2006 in my hometown of Freeport, New York. And I moved to Maryland in 2018, and I've been in this 2015, and I've been in this position since 2018. To echo Chief Black's comments, I mean, I see it as a state problem. It's not a jurisdictional issue. Recruitment and retention is on the forefront of everyone's minds, whether you're a career, volunteer, large scale, small scale. It's the problems are universal. And being in the position that I'm at in a small rural department, administratively as a recruiter, it's a strange phenomenon when you see it happening in large metropolitan departments as well. So I'm interested to hear what everyone has to say today about their motivational culture in their departments. I know it does vary. It can vary from day to day. So I'm looking forward to great discussions and just moving forward. Chief Dale.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Judy Thill. I'm the fire chief for the city of Inver Grove Heights, and that's in Minnesota. I'm a third generation firefighter. actually through the volunteer ranks. My grandfather was a volunteer firefighter. My dad was a volunteer firefighter on the Black Lake Volunteer Fire Department in Pennsylvania. So if we have anybody out there from Western Pennsylvania, kudos to you. I moved to Minnesota for my first job out of college, joined a local volunteer department here, and found out that in the Twin Cities metro area, they really don't have volunteers. They're paid on call, but it doesn't matter whether they're paid on call, paid hourly, paid per call. We still all do it in our spare time. My full-time job at the time was working for Northwest Airlines, which now known as Delta. And I realized that that was not a career for me to go the airline industry. And I really loved what I did in the fire service. So I got a job, full-time job as a fire operations officer with a very large paid on-call department. I was the second full-time employee. Otherwise, there were like about 90 plus paid on-call members. And I stayed on both of them for 11 years until I got this full-time job as a fire chief. I started out as the only full-time employee in the department, but like both of my colleagues here have mentioned, recruitment or retention is very tough. It's different in every fire department. And with the lack of paid on-call firefighters and volunteers, I am now up to, after 17 years, 7 full-time administrative employees and 12 full-time shift employees. So we are a true combination fire department. We have 30 paid on call still, where when I started, we had 65 paid on call. So it is different everywhere. And I also look forward to hearing what everybody else has to say today. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Clear, Chief.
All right. Well, my apologies for being late. I give you all kinds of excuses, but it's just not a good day. So, it is a good day. I had my back procedure this morning, so actually I was just sitting there waiting for another hour. Good old me. I told my wife I can never get the time straight. But I appreciate you all doing your introductions. And as the reason for this is, and Judy brought up yesterday during a little practice session, I probably should have had a couple male fire chiefs on here as well. But after the Women in Fire conference, I heard from several women fire chiefs and captains and stuff about that most males say, oh, we've handled the harassment and bullying issue. It's not really a big deal anymore. And what I heard from these females that attended that conference, of like a lot of them were saying, oh, it's still out there and it's still prevalent. And so my point would be is to get you all together to talk about the motivational climate in your department. And for those fire chiefs who sit behind their desk every day, you ought to get out there and go sit at the kitchen table and see what things are actually being said and actions that are being taken. So I don't want to be all negative, because there are good, positive relations out there that have improved over the years. But that's the point in having this, and it's you all are going to do most of the talking. So I was just the facilitator to try to get you all together and share. And I don't know how many we had show up. I know we had 75 registered yesterday, so we got a good attendance. I do see our good friend Nuno from Portugal is on. He probably hardly ever misses one of our webinars, but we got a real good turnout over here in the chat section. So Nebraska, Virginia, Washington, New York. So I'll go to Donna first and say, Donna, how can we help not just male fire chiefs, but fire chiefs, male or female, to recognize some of the challenges that people of diverse backgrounds, it's not just females, it's not just blacks, but what are some of your tips that you would share with the group?
I've been asked this several times, either serving on Women's Chiefs Council or, quite frankly, if being a female fire chief, it's like, what's your secret, to a healthy, diverse climate? I don't have the secret. I think let's look at it from a department standpoint, you have to be consistent and agreeing on what is the mission. Why are we here? Right? Like it has to start there. I don't care if you're working at McDonald's or you're in the firehouse, you all have to agree, why are we here? And if we could start there, like what are we trying to accomplish? Ultimately, we could talk about Mrs. Smith is going to call 911 and we need to be there. But what are we trying to do around that, right? We want to enjoy coming to work. We don't want to feel stressed coming to work. We want to know that our colleagues can do the job. We want our colleagues to be happy. It's human stuff that really I'm going to go back to, right? Like I can look at my fire department and say, we're a small department in a tourist area. So in the winter, we can be twiddling our thumbs, right? And in the summer, we can be running like crazy. How do you motivate a group of individuals to want to be here and to sit around with each other, respect each other, be happy with each other? It all comes down to, what is the mission? Why am I here? And do I feel valued? And so tips, be human. And by being human, it's being kind and respectful. I have a diverse group here, and it's not diverse in color or religion and things like that. I live in a small town, but I can tell you, old, young, educational backgrounds, what they did for jobs, what my youngins are doing. We're diverse in our own way, but at the end of the day, the mission's the same. We treat each other respectfully, and we're all training for the same goal, which is to help Mrs. Smith. It sounds so simple, and I know it's not that simple out there, and I'm sure I'll hear about it in the chat, but we have to go back to the basics, and I'll turn it to my colleagues.
All right, good. Kate, you have anything to add?
Well, I mean, it's funny because when I was thinking about what I would say on this on this webinar today, and I think it really is about the why. People have to, especially in the volunteer world. I mean, Maryland State Firefighters Association, and we represent, over 30,000 volunteers within the state of Maryland. And, it always comes back to leadership and the why. What kind of leadership is in your building? What kind of leadership is bringing your people to the table? What conversations are being had about the tough stuff? It's a lot of it's a lot of asking questions. It's a lot of really delving deep into people's lives and to finding out why they are there, and really focusing on that, because everybody has a different why. Everybody volunteers or joins a career department for a lot of different reasons. And I think to have your finger on the pulse of your crew and to know exactly what's going on in their lives and why they are doing what they do is going to help you retain them, because you're going to know what they need. To just assume that everybody just wants to serve their communities is not enough. There's got to be other pinpointed reasons. And if they stop coming around, especially in the volunteer service, and obviously if your career people don't show up, that's a problem. But if you have volunteers that just stop coming around, the thing is not to give them grief. I know I stepped away for 6 months. I was going through, some issues. And when I came back, a lot of my colleagues in the fire service were like, oh, it's great to have you back. But there were some that were like, oh, look who showed up today. Or, oh, do I know you? And without really delving into what was going on in my life, I felt a little put off. And I said, well, this was not my why. Now my why is completely changed. So having those conversations with my leadership, involving them in what was going on, and having them ask those important questions to really find out who I was and who I was coming back to be within the fire department really helped me focus on, what I was going to do going forward. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. Judy, anything else?
I echo obviously what my colleagues have said, but one of the things I've learned now that we are a combination department is making sure everybody feels the same value. Doesn't matter whether they're career, doesn't matter whether they're paid on call, volunteer, whatever you want to call them, part-time, that they actually feel valued in the organization. You're always going to have a little bit of butting heads where the careers say, well, it's all about the paid on call, and the paid on call say it's all about the career. But here, we've hired every single one of our career out of our paid on call ranks. We wanted to do that, or my goal was to make sure that they didn't forget our specific mission has been talked about for our particular fire department, and make sure that they all hopefully continued to respect each other, knowing that they all came from the same roots. And we train them all the same, we dress them all the same. You can't tell one from the other, but making sure that everybody feels valued in the organization. And it might not be career and paid on call. It might be, you might have some just EMS people and some fire people and fire EMS people, making sure they all feel value in the organization.
All right, well, we'll come back to that feels valued in a minute here. But I wondered, Donna mentioned about the why and the mission. And I would say I was just in Buffalo for the National Volunteer Fire Council's training summit and doing a seminar. And that came up repeatedly when we asked questions about conflict within an organization, is that people forget the mission. So I have this, I mean, we all probably have mission statements on our wall, but what does it say? And what does it mean? And the only person I know of that it could ever read a mission statement from memory, I should say recite it from memory, was Kelvin Cochran. And he'd been retired from Atlanta for 4 years. And he read it, he knew it verbatim. So I would like to go back to that comment. And Judy, I'll give you the first chance to talk about mission. How do we reinforce the mission of why you're here and how we sustain being valued?
Oh, reinforcing the mission. The calls that we go to, we are here for the people in our community, and the different calls that we go to, it doesn't matter whether it's a lift assist, it doesn't matter whether it's a full-blown structure fire. That's what we're here for. Somebody dials 911, they need help, and we are here for the community. It doesn't matter whether they're a resident, it doesn't matter whether they're somebody visiting the community, and we just need to focus on, we are here to help people. The bottom line, it's as simple as that, and it sounds very simple and it's hard to do sometimes, is we are here simply to help people. And it's interesting because everybody interview, why do you want to be on the fire department? Well, I want to come and help people. But they do lose that focus after a while. And we do have to remind them and give them kudos after different calls, after every call for the frontline officers. But, somebody in my position as the chief, I want to make sure that they feel valued. Certain hard calls that we have, making sure that they have resources if it was a really tough call, and mental health, mental wellness resources available to them, which we're working on now. So there's so many ways you can make them feel valued. Sometimes it's just a simple thank you. And sometimes it is something a little bit bigger, like making sure that they have mental health resources available to them.
Thank you. Kate, anything on mission, breathing the mission?
Yeah, and I think that it is important to bring people back to, and again, the mission goes with the why, and why did you join? Why did you decide to come down on, sort of 6 years ago and knock on the door and fill out an application? What was in your heart then and what's in your heart now? If it's not the same, what's changed that? Really asking those questions. And, when you look at a mission statement, we have a mission statement in our firehouse, and it's serve, support, respond. That's really just the bulk of it. And we always tend to, not always, but, we tend to lose focus on, because everybody can get caught up in paying the bills and doing fundraisers and, doing trainings and all the things that keep us on, to the best that we can be when we do respond on calls. But I feel like we lose some of that personal touch when we get caught up in the paperwork, or we get caught up in, the training and things like that. So we like to, bring everything kind of back down to basics. I've been trying to push this thing where we have the chief officers, get their aprons on and cook dinner one night, and everybody comes around and we all sit around and just shoot the breeze, bring it back down to that family atmosphere that we're used to in our small volunteer fire department, and remind people of why they came here to begin with. Because it is easy to lose sight for all the reasons that Chief Thill said, the mental the mental health issues and seeing tough things, and or trying to balance that work and life and kids and families. And, if you're not explaining or reinforcing the mission and the why all the time to your people, they're going to lose sight and you're going to lose them. And I think that's where we've missed the boat with a lot of the the communities now, is that everybody wants that instant satisfaction, and it's not always that. There's always, you got to give a little to get a little. And to have those honest conversations with the people that are walking in your door, and if they're ready to walk out, find out why, and do that exit interview if you need to. But if you keep honest and true to your mission, from the top to the newest person that just joined, that's the best you can do, is be honest, show expectations early on, and always remember where you came from.
All right, thank you. And our audience is very diverse as well. We have Metro chiefs or Metro officers on here. I don't know if we have them on here today, but we have in the past had Metro chiefs. We've had union presidents on our webinars. And so now, Donna, go back to you, because you brought up the mission of living, eating, and breathing that mission. So what are your kind of ideas or tips?
Sure. I mean, again, I'm in a tourist destination. We don't see a ton of fire, but I could tell you my career staff joined to help people. But what do they want to do? That they think about it. It's like, we're gonna get to fight fires, and we're gonna go to extrication, like that. They want to do the things that traditionally we thought of as a fire service, and we've all had these conversations. We're running mostly medical and every other all hazards, cat in the tree to active shooter, right? We cover everything now. I give credit to my captain for this several years ago. He's a great instructor. He's a firefighter to the core. And we got talking, and he will tell you all day long. He's actually on shift today if he's listening to me in another room, right? Operations and training, operations and training, operations and training. And a few years ago, we started drill of the week on Sundays. And he's like, we can never forget the core mission, though it's a low probability or that we're going to have it, but it can be a high intense event, is a fire, a residential fire, right? We don't see them often, but when they happen, geographically, we're challenged, and we need our folks in town 10 minutes alone. We're not getting any help for 10 minutes, at least. And so they start doing drill of the week. And the purpose of drill of the week, whatever shift was on Sundays, they would design the drill for the week that everyone would do. Volunteers on the training night, the shifts would do it. And it was to reinforce we are firefighters. What are those core skills we need to keep doing? And we've been doing it for years now. And every Sunday, there's lighter months. We'll throw in EMS and other things, but they're like, no, we need to remind ourselves why we are here. They train. They're not forgetting the core of why we're here. And it's training on everything, obviously, because we respond to a lot of stuff, but it's not forgetting. You could put the mission statement on the wall. Like, I have a long mission statement, I'll tell you right now, but on our coins, it says service, pride, community. And that's really, we're living that. So it's a culture that's been built. They can't tell you the mission statement, but what they're doing with their training, every day they're training on something, and they're doing that drill of the week to remind them why we are here, so that when the pager goes off, they're all in. And it's worked for us. It's a small thing, but it's created a really dynamic culture that keeps everyone engaged, volunteers and career.
And what were those three words? Service, pride, and what?
Community.
Community. And you say it on a coin, and I expect that you expect your firefighters to have that coin in their pocket. So,
some do, some don't, but thank you for that.
but that's how it's reinforced. Yeah. Is that you're not only the words, but you're carrying it. Yeah. And so, Kate, I think you mentioned why numerous times in your comments. Excuse me. I expect that you probably read the Simon Sinek book on why, and would encourage all of our listeners to pick that book up and read it. A very good book, and it really asks that tough question, why. So, Kate, what tips? What do you have to say about the why?
Oh, well, I mean, and there's a lot of different whys. It all depends on which why you're talking about. Like, why did someone come and decide to join? Or Why, why did they choose EMS over fire? Why did they choose fire over EMS? What's in their background? And I think it's important to understand that everybody's why is different. And like I said before, taking that time to make it personal. It's hard sometimes when, like Chief Black said, during the summer, they're running tons of calls and there's not a lot of time to sit and get personal, or to maybe everybody can't sit around the firehouse table and chit chat and kind of decompress from the day. But it's those things that make it, especially in a volunteer, and I'm volunteer to the core. That's basically all my experience is volunteer. So I apologize if I'm a little volunteer heavy, but you're talking to people who are giving up their time to be with their families, or aside from work, and they're trying to balance everything. And my honest tip would just be to be there, show up on duty crews, be as involved as you can possibly be. You don't want to hover, you don't want to micromanage as a chief or a line officer, but you want to make sure that if you're going to ask someone to do something, they should be able to see you doing it as well, right alongside them. I don't think anything that we ask of our volunteers is anything above that we wouldn't do ourselves. But making it personal and being right there alongside them is what's going to motivate your people to do the things that you expect them to do, and that they're expecting the same from you. So I think everything needs to be that mutual understanding. And again, being open and transparent about what the needs of the department are. We don't want a lot of fire either. During the summer we have brush fires and things because we're rural farmlands, but we have to be upfront with our people when they join. I think that is key. We can't say, yeah, join us, you're going to be running on a fire engine and it's all bells and whistles, and they join and it's 85% EMS calls, or your run-of-the-mill AFA. So I think from the very beginning you have an opportunity to build that relationship, and it behooves you and your entire department to do so.
Well, and Judy, I'm going to come to you in a second because, we're talking, the title today was about motivational climate. And what Kate just described was, we used to call it learn what makes them tick. And Judy, you want to talk, you got anything to add about learning? How do you learn what makes people tick?
You've got to talk to them. I have to say I'm not perfect at it. I like to get out and talk to the firefighters and get to know them and get to know what makes them tick. I encourage the other officers to do the same thing. I think that's one of the benefits, because we have kind of a duty crew operation where we have full-time and paid on call working together. So they do get to, the line officer does get to know what makes the firefighters tick and what motivates them. It's just simply communication, and that is a big word, a small word, but it's a very important word. And a lot of people do it well. A lot of people don't do it well. I still have things to learn after the 35 years in the fire service that I've been in, to learn on communication. And sometimes, unfortunately, as a chief, we get kind of our head in the administrative stuff, and we don't get out there and talk to the firefighters and find out what makes them tick. We had here small groups just at the end of last year that were working through some things. Small groups, we had a combination of full-time, mainly paid on call, but also had some full-time in there, and asked them, what would help you to stay on as a paid on call firefighter? What can we do? What can we do differently? So we got some different ideas. One was getting them involved. They want to feel valued. They want to be involved in different committees and so on. And sometimes those of us in combination, we're just in that transition phase. We forget that the paid on call still want to be involved, and making sure we ask those questions, ask the paid on call, ask the full time. What do you want to do? What do you like to do? What helps motivate you in this fire department, so we can get you and keep you interested in training, so we can get you to training. So there's lots of different questions you can ask, but It's just very simply communication.
All right, thank you, Donna. Anything on this?
Yeah, it's listening, and I'll give you an example. So when I became chief, I was the only paid person with 30 something volunteers, all interior firefighters. So I came into the perfect situation. Like I had all these people that I could fill all the apparatus. We'd go to calls. It was great. Well, over time, I live in a tourist destination area. It's expensive. We all know the reasons why we end up transitioning. So I brought on staff in a phased approach. So I got a deputy chief, then one captain, then two more captains. They ran the shift with the volunteers. We got to this point about 5 years ago where we had two on shift and using the volunteers. And then I had the opportunity to bring three on shift with the volunteers. But once you get to three, what can you do? Leave immediately for a call. So all of a sudden, we put so much focus, it agreed upon by the entire department that we needed three on duty so we can get out the door quick. What did that do to our deployment model? Totally changed it, because now all of a sudden volunteers are coming in, that engine's gone, and now so we had this shift. So then I doled everyone out, A, B, C shift, talked to the captains, talked to the volunteers, and we woke up Chief woke up about a year and a half ago and said, I'm not sure this is our best model. So I took our volunteers, I put them in a room and said, tell me what you need, because I'm not sure this is working from my perspective. I need to hear from you. And they wanted to do something that I did not think would be good, and that would be to separate them. And basically we call them D shift now. They wanted to be their own entity so that they could train together, integrate, absolutely, come ride standby, do whatever, respond to calls, and we all divide and conquer. But they wanted to be their own unit so that they could train together. We could focus training differently than what the shifts were doing. And I had bucked that for so long because I didn't want to create a separation between the paid and volunteer. They embraced the concept and actually has totally changed our training model. So now our Tuesday night trainings and our Saturday trainings are totally focused on the volunteers, and then they come in and ride during the week and do whatever. My point to the story is we had to shift, had to listen, and had to, again, look at that why for them and the value they wanted to feel. And I thought it was going to be separation. It actually has been more unifying. So I give that as an example.
Well, that's you bring up you use that big word again, even it's only 6 letters, called listen. It is huge. We're going back to your coin comment, Donna. Clyde B in the chat says, if you don't have your coin, you're doing dishes. So there's a penalty there. But I think, you always talked about communications, and listening is a skill. It is a skill. I work for the best listener I could ever imagine. Jim Greason, who was my state fire marshal when I was the fire academy director, he could sit in a meeting for 40 minutes and not say a word, and then go, okay, what I think you all are saying is this. And we all look at each other and going, how in the world did he figure that out? But he listened. So how do we teach people to, as I'm sure our parents told you all, just like my father told me, you have one mouth and two ears. Use the ears more than your mouth. You got any tips? And Judy, I'll go to you first. Any tips on how to listen? How do you learn to listen?
I have no idea.
That's being honest.
I think for some people it comes naturally. Some people, I think, really have to work on it. One of the things is, it sounds so simple, and I don't know if this helps anybody, but you really need to actually listen to the person, not get your rebuttal or your response ready in your head while they're talking, but actually listen. Maybe even repeat. One of the skills that I was taught is repeat back to them a little bit about what, kind of summarize what they just said, so you're both on the same page, so they understand that you actually heard them. and are listening to what they have to say. But also, too, when it comes to listening, follow through. If somebody's talking to you about something and they ask you to do something, that follow through shows that you're listening to them. And so, other than that, wow, I don't have a whole lot more on listening or how to get other people to listen better. Maybe my other colleagues might have something better.
I think you every time you all talk, I'm making notes here. You can't see me. I don't know why my camera's not working today, but I'm making notes. So Donna, I'll go to you. Any ideas you have from teaching listening or skills?
So I talk about this a lot. I think I wrote it in one of Billy's Pass It On books, right? I think our biggest challenge is our perspective and expectation, right? Like we all have a perspective. I have a perspective as a chief. I'll use this example. So if we go to a structure fire as the chief, I have a certain, we all have the same expectation, right? Whether you're the driver, the rookie firefighter, the chief, put water on the fire. But from positionally, like where we are in the organization, we may have the same expectation to put the fire out, but our perspective's different, right? So the rookie, like, just hope, rookie's going to get off and, be dressed right. And, his assignments, whatever his or her assignments, like grab the nozzle, that's all their perspective, right? They're not thinking about the insurance, the safety factors, all those other things, because they're a rookie firefighter. They can only see what they can see. Company officer, expanded role. I've got to do a walk around. I got to do my 360. I got to do this. I got to do that. So we all have different perspectives when you look at we all have the same expectation, but our perspectives are different. So the same goes in the firehouse, right? Like we all come at it from our own experiences, our backgrounds, our knowledge, and we have to learn to respect that of each other. And that makes us better listeners. I can't expect my rookie firefighter to understand the budget cut, right? I can't make my company officer understand why the rookie firefighter, was late to work and burned the toast, right? That it's all perspective from where they're coming from. And if we would give each other that grace around those pieces, I think we become better listeners. A little rambly, but I hope my point was made.
Kate.
I probably am one of the worst listeners. I am constantly trying to better myself to listen and not ask questions to get the answer I'm looking for, but to really listen to the answer that I'm getting. Because sometimes my brain is already thinking how they're like Chief Deal said, like I have already answered the question in my head. I've asked the question. I already know what the answer I want is. So I'm already over there. I'm on the other side of this question. And sometimes I look at the person and they're talking to me and I know what they're saying, but I'm like, no, that's not where I was hoping this was going, or that's not the answer that I was hoping to get. So it's been a learning experience for me. I'm the youngest of 6, just to put that into perspective. I had to kind of always yell, over everybody, and nobody listened to me. So I was just, it's definitely something that I'm always working on. But I think to be a better listener and to understand is to ask questions and wait, not ask questions and be in such a hurry to get them to the end of their answer so you can then give your input. Like, wait. I find myself kind of, pinching my leg or sometimes, like, just wait for them to finish. You don't need to say whatever it is that you need to say right now. Let them finish what their thought is. And then for me, it's asking another question after they answer my question. So this way I'm continuing the conversation, but I'm not giving my feedback right away. I'm not jumping into, their answer and making it what I want it to be. I ask another question to say, oh, so I understand this correctly. This is really what you're saying. Or I take notes. I say, if it's definitely a teaching moment, I'll sit and I'll write something down and I'll say, just putting this away for later, or so I can follow up. But it's definitely something that I've been working on a lot. And I learn by listening to others, so if Chief Black were to ask Chief Buckner a question, I would watch how you would ask the question and wait for Chief to answer. And then what do you do with that answer that he gives you? Do you start talking right away? Or do you ask another question, or do you let him kind of finish his thought and then maybe add another thought? So these are things that I watch as a kind of self-renowned people watcher, and I'm learning. But I'm glad you asked that question, Chief, because I thought that I was not a very good listener for a long time, and it's something you do have to work at, and I feel like I'm not alone now.
No, and none of us are perfect at listening. And my quick story about listening is one of my daughters beat me over the head one day and said, "You don't really listen to what I have to say." And I thought, "Well, yes, I do." And then she goes, "You always want to talk about what you're doing." And I thought, "Well, I'm just trying to give you an update. I listen to what you've been doing." And so, but it was like, "Oh, wow, John, maybe you ought to think about not talking so much and listening more when you're listening to your daughter." But Judy, you said about ask a question. And what I think, what, like I was told this years ago. So after listening to somebody's talk, ask the question, is this what you said? Because that continues that dialogue, and you give them a chance to explain a little bit more, or you missed the target totally. So I liked your comment about ask a question when they're done listening. Don't just start talking. You've all said that. Ask a question, and the follow through is what scares many chief officers, because it's like, oh my gosh, if they tell me a good idea, then I have to follow through with it and actually do it. And that can be easy or it can be very difficult. So, something to think about. Anything else you all want to mention about listening?
Well, I think
Or,
it motivates others to ask questions of their colleagues. If you're asking questions at a chief level, or as a director level, or whatever, if you're in a leadership role, the more you actively listen, the more you'll see that your traits will kind of rub off on your colleagues and your line officers and your firefighters and your EMTs, because they know that it's an open communication. They know that you do it. They know that you listen. They know that you ask questions. So they tend to be a little bit more apt to do that with their own people on their own shift. And I think it just creates a bigger bubble than just what you do on a one-on-one basis with your people. They kind of take that as an example and run with it. It's been my experience anyway.
Yeah. Somebody else want to comment?
as I was just going to say, similar to what's already been talked about, just don't go into the conversation with a preconceived notion of what they're going to tell you, what they're going to say, what they're all about. They may be one of your problem people, but they might actually have a legitimate concern. So be open and be open to the listening part for sure, but be open to what they're actually saying, and don't judge it before they actually finish saying what they're going to be saying.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, Donna, you got anything you want to add?
Yeah, I'll add one piece. There's the listening, and also I think that goes along with the communication as making it okay to have the hard conversation, because so many people are afraid to have the hard conversation, or I might hurt their feelings, or you have to get whatever it is out. So along with listening, the other side of that is don't let something fester, really encourage the hard conversation. It needs to start at the top. I know I've done that here. I am not afraid. You can ask any of my firefighters. I'm not afraid to have a hard conversation. Ask any of my colleagues in town, because that usually the hard conversation is going to make whatever's going on go away. But if you let things fester, so there's listening and making it okay to have that hard conversation.
Yeah. Well,
another good book.
That we'll come back to the hard conversation in a minute. Let me close out this listening little discussion and throw out these three letters: EGO. Sometimes our ego becomes the thing of, oh, what I have to say is more important, or where I am is more important, and realize that your ego should not play a role in your communications. So it's one of the, but we all have one, and we all have seen them, the ones who wear it on their shoulder, and then we all have ones who wear it in their pocket and they don't pull it out very often. But that ego can get you in trouble from the listening perspective. But Donna, you brought up the hard conversation, and when talking about the motivational climate in your department, it is difficult, especially in today's world with volunteers. There are not very many of them, so you don't want to make them mad. But if you don't have that conversation, how does that impact the motivational climate in your department?
Most important thing, you got to be consistent, right? So a lot of my volunteers are support volunteers. They're not running in the burning building. They can do exposure control. They can cut people out of a car, but they might not be running in the burning building. You have to be consistent with your messaging. Now, it doesn't mean that if volunteer X is doesn't choose to go to a call one day because they had family in, it's very different than the employee that didn't show up that should have been there. There's going to be differences that way. But as far as what the expectation is, as a member of the department, we're one department. The expectation is to train, to respond, to be respectful, like I go down our list, and you got to hold that line. And you have to call them in the office. I'll give you an example. I had a professor who was a driver for us. Didn't do anything else, just drove. And really good guy, came to everything, right? You all want that. Everyone has that person in their fire department that's a volunteer that will go to every call, so you never have to worry about someone driving. And he had 3 minor incidents, nothing major, but 3 minor incidents driving over a period of time. I'm talking like running over, landscaping things, nothing major. And I called him in and I said, we have to talk about this. And he was an English professor. And I said, the thing I want to do is put you back in some training and take you off the street. But that doesn't help me, right? These are all minor infractions. And I'm like, but I don't know how to get you to be impactful about your 3 incidents. And they were just really, he was a little cocky, a little confident, and got a little, complacent, right? And I said, so I need to hit you with something that will make you understand. I need you to drive, but I need you to think about this. So I made him write me a paper on lessons learned from his 3 incidents. And he looked at me, he's like, you're kidding. I'm like, no, write me a lessons learned paper so I could show everyone else. Because how else am I going to get to you? I can't, dock your pay. I can't do this. And he didn't have an incident after that. I'll tell you that. But it was a good paper, right? Like, but tell me, because I'm like, how do I get to this guy? But again, be consistent. I have to punish you. I have to do something. There's got to be a disciplinary action around you're getting a little too complacent. So anyway, that's my example.
Kate, anything you want to add?
So, I mean, it's a fine line because, everyone's struggling with volunteers and you don't want to turn them away because, you have to have hard conversations. But in the same sense, any hard conversations that I've ever had is to say, bring it back to, we all talk about the mission statement, right back to that. Like, if there's things that are going on that's detrimental to the department, whether it's attitude, whether it's complacency, whether it's lack of training, somebody's just not doing the right thing when it comes to being on the fire ground, like, you have to have conversations, or, either there's going to be some kind of issue happening at the station that, nobody wants to deal with. Nobody, and I've had these conversations where I'm like, do you want what you have done or what you're perceived or of doing, to be on the front page of the newspaper, or, would you want to be, because you're not training or your lack of making sure things are done correctly, do you want that to be, your mark on this department? And a lot of people say no. Obviously, nobody wants to be that guy. But in the same sense, you do have to be a little cautious because you don't want to run people out of your department because the volunteers are hard to come by. But I think when you come back to the basics of saying, what we do here is for our community. We run calls, we run EMS calls, we run fire calls, and people can get hurt if they don't train. Basically breaking it down as simple as you can without being rude. I mean, there's always, room for being a nice person and talking nice to people to get what you want. But sometimes people don't respond as well sometimes to that. So it's a catch-22 sometimes, depending on what the infraction is. If it's something that's minor that you can get through, then, you know, a quiet conversation like what Chief Black had, and something that you can chuckle about and say, you got to write me a paper, and it's a learning experience. But other things could be harder, that people could really get hurt if they don't pay attention and they don't do what they need to do. So as long as they know that whatever you're saying is coming from a place of looking out for the organization as a whole, I think you always have that to lean on if feelings do get hurt. You say, well, this is what we need to do to protect the department and make sure that we're all doing what we need to do so we can get home at the end of the day. So,
Thank you. Judy.
A hard conversation with somebody recently, but I'm going to go back to what we had talked about earlier, is knowing what makes people tick. And I noticed a change in behavior in this particular person. And even though it was a hard conversation, I went at it from the perspective that your behavior's changed. And I've noticed this, and this in you. And I'm just very concerned with you. Yes, you've done these particular things that we have to talk about, but I mean, in the end, it actually went very well, because he understood that, yes, he had made some mistakes, but I actually cared about him, and to notice, number one, that he had this change in behavior, and that I was willing to work with him, and how can we work together to get him over this hump that he's on. So I think it's sometimes you really have to show them that you care. And those hard conversations are always going to be hard. But if they know in the end that you care about them, and it's for the betterment of the department, but also many times the betterment of them in particular, that sometimes those conversations might go a little bit easier and a little bit better.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know, Sherry, we may go a few minutes over, but my final topic that you all gave me from your conversation was Chief Brunacini always said, "Be nice to Mrs. Smith." And that was one of his slogans, one of his quotes that many of us still use today. But I added to that is, be nice to your brother and sister firefighters. And so the last topic I wanted to talk about today was, and you guys brought it up earlier, kind and respectful, is in today's world, you can say whatever you want on social media. You can say people think they can say whatever they want without any repercussions, without any feedback, without any consequences. But we can't have that in a fire station. They have to learn to watch their mouth and watch the words they say. So any advice that you might have, and Judy, I'll come to you first, any advice that you might have on how to remind people to be kind and respectful of each other?
Mainly they have to remember, we go back to that mission statement, why are we there? But that we're all in it for the same reason. We're all there to do the same training. We're all the same worth in this department. And I lost my train of thought there, Chief.
Well, we can come back.
Maybe if you could go the other one, I'll come back. I was heading somewhere on that, but I just lost my train of thought.
We all do that. Donna, anything from you?
Sure. Yeah, behaviors and actions are contagious, right? So if there's a lot of happy around, even, you'll get more happy. If there's a lot of cranky around, you tend to see more cranky. So behaviors are contagious. Actions are contagious. So you need people to be good role models around being nice and being respectful. And it's not just the chief, the influence of the company officer, that's a whole nother hour, right? The influence of the company officer on the impacts of the culture of the department. So you have to have people in roles that are showing what it's nice to be nice, be respectful, take care of your brothers and sisters. So people they're gonna do what they see. So we better be doing it, and it does need to start at the top. Secondly, we all need to have the courage to call it out, right? We need to call out when we're seeing bad behavior and someone's not being treated well in whatever situation. That's the hard part, is to have that courage. But be a good role model and have the courage to call it out when you don't see it.
All right, thank you. Kate.
I think it all just comes back down to, treat people how you want to be treated. And when you have someone that's being detrimental within the department, um, basically bringing that out and saying, if I walked into your home and talked to you the way that you're coming into this home, which is sometimes home for people, people come in and they feel like they're home there, and they feel like they're your siblings, and they're not just your friends. These are people that you run awful calls with and spend a lot of time with. How would you feel? Put yourself in this person's position. Understand that every action has a consequence. Every word hurts. If the and really reiterating the fact that you wouldn't want to be treated this way. Um, it's called brother and sister for a reason. And you can play fight, and you can get on each other's nerves, and you can do all these things, but at the end of the day, these are the people that you need to have your back. And if bringing it to that individual who's not a team player or who's causing disruption within the firehouse, it's really saying, if you were in a burning building or on the side of a road trying to assist in a really rough call, and you turn around, there's nobody there because you haven't created this environment where people want to be near you, or people want to be with you or associated with you, you're going to find yourself alone, and alone on a fire ground, or alone when you're trying to do the things that we go out to do to help our communities. That's a hard place to be if you're by yourself. And that would be my first and main message to anyone like that is, you need us as much as we need you. And let's all, make sure that the way we're treating each other is how we would treat each other if we were in our own homes.
Sure.
And yeah.
And Chief, I remember what I was going to say. I was going to talk about setting the example and so on, but also be careful, because you might have a couple people that are friends that are kind of bantering back and forth, and it may look disrespectful to somebody who doesn't know them. So also be careful of that. Example I talked about with the chief yesterday was we had a Hispanic male in our department, and he told a lot of jokes about himself and his heritage and everything. And so the other firefighters jumped on that and started telling similar jokes and so on. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Well, look how he doesn't mind. He tells the same kind of jokes about himself. It's like, first off, this is a place of employment. Second, you have no idea who's going to be walking through that door. And, hearing what you're saying, which actually sounds very disrespectful. And to some people, it might be disrespectful, might not be to that particular individual. But even just the bantering, be aware of, you might have a really good friend and you can think you can say things to them, but it's not right for the workplace. Save that when you're one-on-one with your buddies out in the garage having a beer or something, but not in the workplace, because somebody sees you do that. They don't know that you're friends, and they're like, oh, that's okay if I, say something derogatory or disrespectful to somebody or about somebody else. It's accepted around here. So just be careful of those really tight friendships where you can really be misconstrued by other people that are observing from the outside.
Yeah, and good point. Somebody is always listening in today's world. They're listening, and that device is out there. So, you guys, it's funny, Kate, you brought up the brothers and sisters and fighting and stuff. And my granddaughter, Kate, is 11 years old, now 12, and Nick is 14. And they're typical brothers and sisters. They fight and they yell and scream at each other. But Kate was asked at school this year, who, along with other classmates, who is your hero? And unprovoked, she said, my brother. And it's like, wow, that's a pretty powerful statement. And it relates to just what you talked about, Kate, is that the hero is the firefighter sitting next to you at the kitchen table or riding in the back seat with you on that engine. It better be, because they may need to be your hero. And so don't ever forget that that's what they are. So, but I want to thank you all. We'll close this out now. But you do have a couple quotes I'm going to use here at the end there. Don't forget that actions have consequences. You all said that, and you may not think it has consequences because I got away with that, doing that, or saying that. But a year from now, that may be when the consequences come up because things just don't die today. As I said, somebody's always looking. And so, with that, I know that we have, before I give out this final quote that one of you said, I want to just thank you all for doing this. I know you probably thought when Buckman called you, sent you an email like, what is he getting me into? That's what most people say. But know that I never, you all always exceed my expectations. And I knew that if I get together with you, I got a couple questions in my back pocket, but you guys will give me the questions. And that's what you did in your conversations. And so I appreciate what you've done here today. I appreciate your support for the volunteer and combination officer section. For those of you that I'm looking, there's no, in the chat session, no questions or answers. So with that, I would just give Donna, I will come to you for any final comments and then we'll wrap this thing up.
No, sometimes I think we make it complicated, right? Like, we don't need to over policy things. We don't need to over explain things. If we stick to our mission, we stick to being kind and respectful of our coworkers and the community, and not listen and have the hard conversation. I think, it makes us all better and makes for a healthy work culture.
All right, thank you. Judy, anything final comment?
Just like what was said before, sorry, I can't remember which one said it, be human. We're all human beings. We all have strengths. We all have things we need to work on, but we're all human beings that have, feelings. And a lot of people say, feelings aren't important in the fire service, but they are. Everybody likes to feel valued, and try really hard to make sure that everybody in your organization feels valued. It's not easy to do. Sometimes you forget somebody, and don't be afraid to apologize.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah,
that's a good
point. Yeah, thanks. Kate.
Well, I'd say don't be afraid to apologize and don't be short on your thank yous. Thank you definitely goes a very long way. A lot of people are not looking for, monetary, reimbursements or perks or things like that. But, you come in after a long call and you sit down and you say, wow, you did a really great job on that call today. Or, thanks. Wow, the kitchen looks amazing. You did a great job cleaning that this weekend. I think those are the types of things that feel good. It was so easy. They don't cost a thing. And, it really does go a long way with keeping your motivation in your department on an even keel and helps everybody in the long run. So I appreciate the time. Thank you so much, Chief Buckman, for the invitation.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So when we, I know Sherry is our background person here. And yes, Sherry, I got your name right. It's a running joke between Sherry and I. I can never remember her name. So I have to write it down. That's a joke too. But she's our technology person, technology work today. But so to wrap it up, the final quote I'm going to steal is, when you see inappropriate behavior or behavior that you believe is bad, Chief Black, you said it, have the courage to call it out. That will improve the motivational climate in your department if you will stand up for what's right. So I'll leave you with those comments and say thank you to the audience who's been with us today. It's being recorded, so you can share this if this is worth time at an officers meeting to share some of this with some of your officers that maybe they might learn something from our conversation today. It is recorded, and you will all get a link for that. If you need a certificate, you send an email to nphillips, PHILLIPS, at ifc.org, and she will get you a certificate. I thought we were doing those electronically till about a month ago, and so we're working on getting that done so we can have that automatic. So with that, again, I want to thank our presenters, thank our attendees. Hope each and every one of you have a safe and happy day, and God bless each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.